things about it. First of all, it's going to be for solar pool cover, and those are used to help out this heater that's running right now to try and bring up the pool temperature early in the season. I was just using plastic pipes, but you can see what the problem is with those. They just seem to sag all over the place. So I want to get something stiffer that'll do the entire width of the pool as easily as possible. And I want it to be made from these materials right here. We've got 1 5/8 8-foot fence poles and 1x2s to do some bracing for it. And one of those fence poles is going to be cut in half and embedded in cement inside of the buckets in order to have footings. I've also got a bag full of parts upstairs that go along with this stuff. And here's the incidentals to go along with the materials that are on the ground outside. The chicken is not part of it. We have stainless steel fasteners of various types from Harbor Freight, inexpensive. There's one coupler, a little bit off size, so it needs to be sliced and resized to fit well. That way I can use 2 lengths of the fence post to be 16 feet across the pool, and that's what the solar cover will roll up onto. These are going to top the half fence posts that are in cement footings, but likely have to cut off this top ring because it's meant for a smaller pipe. I might be able to stretch it, but it's only aluminum. I don't know how long it would last. So I'm thinking of just cutting it off and making plastic half bearings as caps that I can take apart to be able to take the entire length of solar cover wrapped on the bar from the top of the 2 posts when I want to store it away for the winter. Some pretty caps for the end to keep the water out of the horizontal post, and clamps with the carriage bolts to hold all of those 1x2s in between the upright posts as bracing. And then finally from Harbor Freight we also have poly anchor line. The poly cord will hold up in the pool water and the weather so that I don't have to worry about the cords that are pulling it up onto the reel rotting out and getting waterlogged over the seasons. About the only thing not showing here is the punch grommets that will be used to stiffen the solar cover itself when I hook it up on the poly cord And for that, it'll be 2 grommets for each cord and adjustable Boy Scout tent knots to make it fit up and pull evenly up onto the reel. I've already got this marked off, so safety glasses. This is going to be my pole that is cut in half for uprights. And I'll turn off the sound so you don't have to listen to all of this grinding noise cutting through. And that should bother the neighbors. Now we have 2 pipes cut off at 4 feet, which is kind of, it might seem like it's on the low side because the water is only 4 feet, but it doesn't have to sit at the bottom of the bucket so that it can be up plenty high enough to have the cap and the bearing pieces that I want to make. It'll hold it up over the edge of the pool. And that bucket will have concrete to weigh it down. We'll just use some wood struts between the 2. Probably 1 strut that'll go to the top of the pool to keep it in place. Okay, we have our footings with wet concrete sitting around waiting to dry while I do some of the other stuff. But before that, we clean up the mess before Carolyn yells at me. Just a little about the fixtures I made to hold the posts off the bottom of the bucket up at the right height. These are scraps of wood that I had around, and I bored a hole in and just screwed them together. You'll see there's a couple of screws on the angled faces that just poke against the post to hold it at the right height. Okay, now the poles are all done, so the next step is to get the long ones put together. So I bought this thing, which is actually for a different size pipe. This one is for a 1 3/8 top rail, while these are 1 5/8 line rails. These are usually the upright in a chain link fence like that, in between the corners. So what I do, in order to get this link part to fit inside of the different size pipe, is cut 2 spots on opposite sides from each other. Now, inside of the pipe, you'll see it's welded. There is that that's going to get in the way. So the easiest thing to do is line up the cut slot with that weld that's on the interior, and she'll slide right in. Now, we can give that a few taps. They're galvanized, so you need to scrub that off before you weld it, because the fumes from galvanized are bad. Or just beat it in with a hammer a little bit and use self-tapping or drill and sheet metal screws, and that will hold it pretty tight. Now, keep an eye on which ends you use to link them together. Also, when you pick them up, you might have some where the cut that they made is not so great. This is, right here is not going to matter too much on the external ends where I'm capping it off to keep the water out, because those caps fit over the top. But that does bulge the interior a little bit when they're cut like that, and it's going to make it a little tougher to get a nice fit on that link, because it's going to be a smaller diameter right there at the end and then larger just beyond it, and it's going to wiggle in there. So try and get a nicely cut end. And if the guy doing the cutting that day had a nice sharp tool and did a good job, just like this one, then all it'll take is a little piece of emery cloth to get any burr off the inside, and it should slide nice on that link to put them together. And there we go. A little bit of hammer persuasion, and she's all the way in. Now, the thing I should also mention is, after I cut this, I put it in a vise and squeezed it. You could do it with a hammer, I suppose, but trying to get that to close down just a little bit would be a big help in trying to get it started inside of this pipe. I also took a file to the inside edge of the tubing so that it wouldn't have a sharp burr to fight against as it was tapping in, and it slides in like butter with a little bit of persuasion. And there we go. Second pipe slid on, laid on a pretty flat spot, because they got to line up. But so a couple of more taps with the hammer just to make it a happy fit, and she slid right down. A few taps with the hammer on the end of one of the pipes, and I just butted the end against something on one end, tapped the other end, and no screws, no welds, no nothing. And you can already see she's a little bouncy, but pretty stiff at 16 feet. So, time to get some fasteners in there, or tack a little weld on, something to keep that from pulling back apart, although it did take a hammer hit to put them together. And like I said, you can use screws to do it, as long as the heads are pretty small, not sticking out too much. But there's my weld with my little MIG welder. And from here you can see a little bounce, but there's no sag on that. Not like there is with plastic pipes.